Wait, what do you mean?
Well, since you're the main breadwinner in this family, you should be the one to pay for the house renovation.
You can't say no to this. You're my wife. A wife should listen to everything her husband and in-laws say.
The in-laws and husband smirk at this. They lack common sense, but in a way, that's better for me. I smile and respond. I'd be happy to help. My name is Tammy, a 32-year-old company employee. I have a husband named Eric, whom I've been married to for 2 years. We met through mutual friends. One of them, Eric, came over for a barbecue my friend had organized. He was outgoing and funny, and we hit it off right away. We exchanged numbers and started going out for drinks, which led to us dating. He works at a regular company and earns less than me, but I fell in love with his personality, and I really liked him. After dating for 2 years, he proposed, and we decided to get married. I thought I would be happy with him, since he always made me laugh. Besides, it's an era where women thrive in their careers, so I figured there would be no problem if I worked hard to support our finances. After deciding to marry, we quickly visited his parents' home.
I can't believe my son brought home such a wonderful lady to marry.
She's beautiful and has a lovely smile. I'm envious. Mom, Dad, don't embarrass her by praising her so much. You are making her uncomfortable.
But it's true, so what can we say?
That's right. You got a great wife, so never let her go. I know. I will cherish her forever.
I felt so happy and a bit shy with their conversation. It made sense that such a great guy like him had wonderful parents. My parents died in an accident when I was young, and since then, I was raised by my grandparents. But after losing my grandfather 7 years ago, and my grandmother 5 years ago, I had no other family. Their warmth was especially comforting, since my grandparents had raised me with so much love. His parents approved of our marriage, and we got married. We had our wedding and honeymoon, and started living together as a married couple. Our newlywed life was so much fun. We both worked, but he usually got home earlier and would cook dinner, which I was so grateful for. Coming home to a warm meal after a busy day at work was blissful. Something people who would live alone for a long time would understand. He cooked dinner, so I took care of washing dishes and cleaning and laundry on weekends. We shared household chores evenly and had a happy newlywed life. I thought we would continue to have fun and eventually have kids to build a lively, happy family. But a year into our happy marriage, things started to turn sour. One day, Eric suddenly said,
Actually, my parents want us to move in with them.
What?
Looks like Mom hurt her back.
Is she okay?
It seems pretty bad. As the eldest son, I feel like I need to support her. That's why I want you to agree to us moving in and living with them.
I see. I was really torn about it. His parents were kind and nice, but we'd only been married for half a year. I wanted to enjoy our life together a bit longer. But his mother's back pain seemed serious enough to make doing household chores difficult. I thought maybe it would be better for us to live together and support them. After a week of thinking, I agreed to it. Eric was very happy when I said yes, and when we called his parents, I could hear their joy over the phone. I felt good knowing they were also pleased with my decision. So we ended our lease on our apartment and moved in with his parents.
I am so glad you came, Tammy.
Thank you for agreeing to live with us.
They welcomed me with smiles. I'm looking forward to living with you all. I greeted them with a smile. And that evening, we celebrated with delivery sushi and drinks. I thought living with such kind in-laws would be lively and fun. But the reality was different from what I had expected.
Welcome back, Tammy. You must be tired from work.
Thank you.
Well then, could you start right away?
Sure. After a busy day at work, I had to do all the housework. I finished preparing dinner, which I had started in the morning, then moved on to cleaning the bathroom, toilet, and doing laundry. I couldn't relax in the bath until after midnight, and in the morning, I had to wake up early to prepare dinner for that night. I had assumed that we would share household chores like we did when we were newlyweds. However, once we moved in with his parents, Eric stopped doing any housework. His mother had told him not to worry about it, since he didn't want to burden her son with chores she couldn't do because of her back pain. I wanted to protest, but I just kept quiet and followed along. His mother would always say, "I'm sorry and thank you," which made it hard for me to refuse. Thus, I became increasingly exhausted from juggling work and household chores. As a result, I began to fall behind on housework. Then, the in-laws, who had been kind until then, started to criticize me.
What's this, Tammy? Store-bought prepared food?
I'm sorry. I've been so busy at work. I didn't have time to cook in the morning.
That's no excuse. Are you really okay with making us eat this?
Actually, store-bought food these days is quite high quality and nutritious.
Handmade food is obviously more nutritious.
I never thought you would do something like this.
The in-laws scolded me like this. I didn't know what to do and looked to Eric for support. But he stayed silent. I had hoped that at least my husband would be on my side. It was tough enough physically, but now it was becoming mentally challenging as well. They started to blame me for everything, making the house feel uncomfortable. Realizing the situation couldn't continue like this, I decided to talk to Eric. That's when he shocked me with his response.
It's your fault for not being a good wife. You need to meet my parents' expectations. Otherwise, there's no point in living together.
I was so angry. I couldn't help but talk back. Hold on. I work more than you, and yet I'm expected to do all the housework. You are usually home before me. You should be doing it. But instead, you push everything onto me, and then blame me when it's not done perfectly. That's not fair. When I said this, his eyes widened in anger.
What the heck, Tammy? Are you defying me, your husband? It's unbelievable that you're blaming me when you're the one who is inadequate.
I was shocked because this was the first time I had seen my unusually gentle and kind husband yell like that. Not knowing what else to do, I just apologized, saying, "I'm sorry." From that point on, both my husband and in-laws started to hurl harsh words at me. I gradually began to think I was truly a terrible person, and that I should obediently follow what the in-laws said, since they were right. Then one day, I got a message from an old friend, someone I was close with in high school. She suggested we meet up after a long time, so I agreed, feeling nostalgic. We decided to meet at a cafe on our day off. Seeing me after a long time, she asked, "What's wrong with you?" When I asked, "What do you mean?" she replied, "You look really terrible." I was confused until she asked if it was work or my husband that was troubling me. At that time, I was almost brainwashed into thinking there was no problem at all. Not at all. Nothing's tough. Work is as busy as ever with lots of overtime. but it's fulfilling. At home, my in-laws are guiding me since I'm a failure. My friend was speechless when I said that. Tammy, that's what you call mistreatment and emotional abuse? No way. I'm just not good enough, so they're being strict with love. You're exaggerating. Please, Tammy, wake up. You're like brainwashed. What are you talking about? Brainwashed? Seriously, this is wrong. I will help with anything, but you need to cut ties with that family as soon as possible. Her eyes were dead serious. Then, something inside me began to stir again. Something was wrong with my current situation. Those people were wrong. Such thoughts started to come to my mind. After parting with my friend, I went straight home, but I was met with this.
You are late. Prioritizing friends over us is unacceptable.
I'm sorry. I will start cooking dinner right away. I suddenly felt irritated. I quickly made dinner and served it at the table.
What? Fish today? I was in the mood for meat.
Yes, I wanted meat too. You really don't understand, do you?
Can't be helped. She's a failure.
They all laughed at this. I wondered why I had to put up with this from these people. If they have complaints, they should cook themselves. These thoughts suddenly came to my mind, along with a feeling of anger. What's happening to me? I thought they were right, but now, after dinner and washing the dishes, they called me to the living room to talk. What did you want to talk to me about? Then, with a happy smile, my husband said,
We are thinking of rebuilding this house.
Rebuild a house? As I was surprised, my mother-in-law spoke up.
This house is getting pretty old, you know. So we are thinking of rebuilding it.
I naively thought it was a good idea and said, That sounds like a great idea.
Right? I knew you would say that. So you will be paying for the reconstruction.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, since you're the main breadwinner in this family, you should pay for the house renovation.
She said it matter-of-factly. Then, my husband chimed in.
You can't say no to this. You're my wife. A wife should listen to everything her husband and in-laws say.
They all smirked at that. But I don't have that kind of money. Then my husband said something shocking.
What are you talking about? You have the inheritance from your grandparents.
What?
You should use that money for us. You get to contribute to the family you married into. We'll get a nice, comfortable house. It's a win-win situation.
At that moment, something snapped inside me, and I fully came to my senses. They had been planning to use me from the start. There is no way I'd give them the money my loving grandparents left me. I had been brainwashed and exploited up until now, and it was time for revenge. Their lack of common sense was actually a blessing in disguise. I smiled and said, I'd be happy to help. They clapped their hands in joy, probably thinking they had successfully brainwashed me. But the brainwashing was over. Now it was my turn. I contacted my friend again, who had reached out earlier. She happened to be a lawyer. I thanked my friend for helping me regain my sanity and formally asked for her assistance in getting a divorce. She readily agreed, saying of course, and we began preparing for the divorce. Following her advice from our previous meeting, I used my smartphone's recording app to capture instances where my husband and in-laws verbally abused me and tried to coerce me into using my assets. I was skeptical at first, but I'm glad I recorded everything. The emotional abuse and mistreatment continued, so I gathered plenty of evidence. The house rebuilding plan progressed smoothly. My husband and in-laws were thrilled about getting a new house and continuing to use me as both a maid and a breadwinner. Meanwhile, I steadily prepared for my revenge. On the day of the contract signing, they were all excited. I joined them in the car, smiling slyly. At the real estate office, they happily signed the contract, of course, in my husband's name. We arranged for a loan, and I promised to make the payments. The payments were to be transferred monthly to my husband's account. He suggested I could just put all the money in at once, but I managed to convince him my way was better to avoid any loss. After confirming the contract, I stepped outside the real estate office, pretending I had an urgent work call. They were a bit annoyed, but more overwhelmed with joy, so they didn't stop me from leaving. I caught a taxi to the council office, and with some men my friend had arranged, quickly packed up my belongings and moved them to my car. I left the divorce papers on the table and moved to an apartment I had previously arranged for single living. Eric sent calls and messages during the move, but I ignored them all. After I finished moving, I messaged him that I had to suddenly go to work. He sent angry messages in response, but I ignored them. About 2 hours later, he called frantically, probably just returning home.
Hey, what the hell is this about?
Exactly what it looks like. I've decided to divorce you.
Why so suddenly?
I can't take your emotional abuse or your mother's mistreatment anymore.
What the? Who is going to pay for the new house's lawn if you're gone?
Figure it out yourselves. I'm no longer involved. Goodbye.
I will refuse the divorce. That way, you will still have to pay as my wife.
Then let's fight it out in court.
Court?
If you refuse, I will fight as long as it takes. If it goes to court, you will have to pay legal fees too. I earn much more than you and have an inheritance, so I can afford it. But can you? With a high monthly loan, you can't afford to waste money, right? Hearing this, he screamed, "Damn it!" over the phone. Apparently, on speaker, his parents started begging me with desperate words, but I ignored them all and said, "I'm not your maid. I will never forgive you. Drown in debt and go to hell." I hung up the phone. Through my lawyer friend, I pursued the divorce and compensation for the emotional abuse. Eric initially refused, but once he realized a court case would cost more, he reluctantly agreed. As for the house reconstruction, they canceled it, but since they had already signed a contract for a $700 rebuild, they were charged a 10% cancellation fee, which was $70,000. So they ended up losing $70,000 and had to pay additional compensation without getting anything. It was a fitting outcome for their actions. Meanwhile, I'm living comfortably and happily alone in my apartment. I can't thank my friend enough for her help. I plan to treat her to a nice dinner soon. For now, I'm good without romance and thinking of finding a new hobby to enjoy my single life.